Hey everyone, and welcome back to engNatural, Learn English Naturally. So glad you're tuning in today. We're diving deep into a topic that I know resonates with so many of you, and it's something truly transformative when you master it: how to think directly in English. And yes, that means saying goodbye to that little translator living in your head. You know, it's a common experience, right? You hear something in English, your brain immediately switches to your native language, translates it, then you form an answer in your native language, translate it back to English, and then you speak. It's exhausting, it's slow, and it often trips us up. But what if I told you there's a way to skip all those extra steps and just think in English? Imagine the fluency, the confidence, the sheer speed. That's what we're talking about today. And here's a little bonus for you. For this episode, we've put together a free PDF lesson that includes the full transcript, a vocabulary list, and key sentence structures we'll be discussing. It's a great resource to revisit what we talk about. You can grab that in the description below this episode. Trust me, you'll want it. So, have you ever felt stuck in that translation loop? Ever wished your English thoughts just flowed naturally, like your first language? Well, you're in the right place. We're going to break down exactly what thinking in English truly means, why it's a game changer, and practical ways to make it happen. Stick around because this is going to be incredibly insightful. And if you enjoy what you hear, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It really helps more people find us and join our community. Let's jump right in. All right, let's kick things off by defining what thinking in English actually means. Because it's not just about stopping translation, right? It's deeper than that. For me, it's about accessing concepts, ideas, and even emotions directly through the English language, without any intermediate steps. It's like when you're fluent in your native language. You don't think, okay, I see a dog, that's con cho in Vietnamese. You just see a dog, and the word dog is instantly there, connected to the image, the feeling, the concept. It's that immediate connection, that seamless flow from thought to word, or word to understanding, without conscious effort. It's crucial because it drastically speeds up your processing. When you're constantly translating, your brain is doing double duty. It's like trying to run a race with ankle weights on. You can do it, but you're so much slower, and it's exhausting. Think about it. Every time you hear something, you translate. Every time you want to say something, you translate back. That's 2 extra steps every single time. And that takes up valuable mental real estate, right? It diverts your focus from truly understanding the nuance of what's being said or expressing exactly what you mean. It also helps with naturalness. When you think directly in English, your phrasing, your idioms, even your intonation can become more authentic, more native-like. You start to internalize the natural patterns of the language rather than imposing structures from your first language. I can tell you, this isn't just theory for me. I've experienced a similar kind of mental shift in a completely different area of my life, but the principle is identical. For years, when I was first starting out in my career, I used to meticulously plan out every single presentation, every single meeting agenda, word for word. I'd write out exactly what I wanted to say. Then I'd try to deliver it perfectly, verbatim. And you know what? It always felt stiff. It felt unnatural. I was so focused on recalling the script that I wasn't truly connecting with the audience or with the material itself. It was like I was translating my own thoughts from a rigid script into spontaneous speech. My mind was stuck in this loop of what's the next line instead of what's the core message here and how can I best convey it. My brain was constantly working overtime trying to recall precisely what I had written down. I remember one particular big meeting. I was presenting a new strategy, and I had prepared everything. But then someone asked a question that was totally off script, a really insightful, challenging question that required me to think on my feet. My mind just froze. I was so reliant on my prepared script that I couldn't access my knowledge directly. I fumbled. It was embarrassing, honestly. I felt like I had let myself down. That moment was a huge wake-up call for me. I realized that true understanding, true mastery, wasn't about memorizing or translating. It was about internalizing the concepts so deeply that I could express them spontaneously, in any situation. It was about thinking about the strategy, not just recalling the words I'd written about it. So I started practicing. Instead of scripting, I'd focus on key bullet points, the main ideas, and trust myself to articulate them naturally. I'd internalize the concepts until they were just there, at my fingertips. And it was uncomfortable, oh man, very uncomfortable. There were moments of silence, moments where I wasn't as articulate as I wanted to be. But slowly, gradually, something shifted. My presentations became more fluid, more engaging. I could respond to questions effortlessly because I wasn't translating from a script anymore. I was speaking directly from my understanding. It was liberating. And that's exactly what happens when you move from translating to thinking in English. You unlock a new level of fluency and confidence. It's about building those direct pathways in your brain. It takes effort, but the payoff is immense. That's such a great analogy, Puck, about the presentation. It really highlights how those extra processing steps just bog us down, right? And it makes me think about the different stages people go through when they're trying to move towards this thinking in English goal. It's not like you just flip a switch. Absolutely not. It's definitely a spectrum. I think the very first stage, for most people, is that constant word-for-word translation. You hear apple, you think guā dao. You want to say I like apples, you mentally construct doi thic guā dao, then translate each word back into English. It's incredibly slow and honestly a bit painful. Yeah, and the errors that come with it. Because you're translating literally, you end up with sentences that sound off. Like technically correct words, but just not how a native speaker would ever phrase it. Hot dog becoming jiā nāng? You know, those kind of amusing mishaps that come from literal translation. Oh, absolutely. And that leads us to the next stage, which I see a lot. People start translating phrases rather than individual words. So they might hear a common idiom and they'll try to find a direct equivalent in their native language, or they'll try to piece it together. It's an improvement because they're thinking in bigger chunks, but it's still translation. It's still not direct access. Right, they're still using the native language as the intermediary. And then, I think, comes the stage where you start recognizing words and simple phrases directly in English, without conscious translation. Like you see hello or thank you, and it just is hello or thank you. There's no translation happening anymore for those basic high-frequency words. That's a huge milestone. It really is. And you feel that shift, don't you? It's like a little click in your brain. But then it gets more complex. You might be able to understand individual sentences directly, but when someone launches into a fast-paced conversation or a complex explanation, you still find yourself reverting to translation. It's a bit of a back-and-forth dance. Exactly. And this is where what I call the mental block cycle can really kick in. You try to think in English, you feel stuck, you get frustrated, and your brain just defaults back to the comfortable, familiar path of translation. It's like, nope, too hard, let's just do it the old way. And then you get stuck in that loop. The frustration itself becomes a trigger for the old habit. I've definitely seen that happen. Or even for myself, when I'm trying to learn a new skill or a highly technical topic. It's like my brain insists on trying to fit it into an old framework rather than creating a new one. It's not a language translation, but a concept translation, which creates a similar kind of mental friction. Oh, tell me about it. I actually had a pretty funny experience recently, not with language, but with understanding a new piece of software. It was supposed to streamline my workflow, right? Make things simpler. But the interface was so different from what I was used to, my brain just kept trying to map every single new button and feature back to the old software I knew. The old mental model. Exactly. And I'd find myself muttering things like, okay, this export button, it's like the save as button from the other program, but it's not. No, it's more like publish, but not really. I was basically doing real-time mental translation between two software systems, and it was agonizingly slow. I'd click the wrong things, get error messages, my productivity dropped to 0 for a solid 2 hours. So you were, in a way, translating software language in your head. Precisely. And the funny part was, the solution was right there in front of me, in the new software's own logic. But my brain was so insistent on trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I kept getting stuck, frustrated, and almost gave up. It felt like I was learning a new language, but for computers. That's a perfect illustration of the mental block cycle even outside of language. You get stuck, you revert to old habits, and it feels inefficient. So recognizing these stages, from word for word to phrase-based to some direct understanding, and then understanding the mental block cycle, is the first step towards breaking free. It's about being aware of where you are. All right, now that we've talked about what thinking in English is and why it's so vital, and even those stages we go through, let's get into the how-to. How do we actually build this habit, these direct neural pathways? What are some practical strategies? I think the absolute core, the foundation of everything, is consistency. This isn't something you can do for an hour one day and then forget about for a week. It requires daily, even hourly, conscious effort, especially at the beginning. It's like building muscle memory. You can't just go to the gym once.
That's so true. Small, consistent efforts compound over time. And to make those efforts sustainable, I'm a huge advocate for setting incredibly small, achievable goals. Instead of saying, I will think in English all day, start with something like, for the next 5 minutes, I will narrate what I'm doing in my head in English.
Oh, I love that one. Narrate what I'm doing. Like, I am walking to the kitchen. I am opening the fridge. I am reaching for the milk. That sounds simple, but it's powerful. It forces your brain to access those words directly.
Exactly. Or even simpler, when I see an object, I will try to name it in English, silently, before my brain translates it. Just pick 5 objects around you right now. Go. That kind of micro practice builds confidence.
And what about rewarding yourself? Not with a huge vacation, but with something immediate and connected to the process.
Absolutely. I think positive reinforcement is key. For example, if you manage to have a full conversation without translating, even a short one, acknowledge that victory. Or if you spend 15 minutes journaling entirely in English, give yourself a mental pat on the back. The reward can be the feeling of fluency itself.
That's interesting. The intrinsic reward. But sometimes, especially when starting, people need something more tangible, right? Like, if I manage to describe my entire morning routine in English in my head, I get to listen to my favorite podcast episode.
Yes, exactly. And here's an unexpected tip that I've found incredibly effective, not just for language, but for any kind of mental training. Embrace the awkward silence.
Ooh, tell me more. That sounds counterintuitive for communication.
It totally does, right? We're so conditioned to fill every conversational gap. But when you're trying to think in English and you hit a blank, instead of immediately reverting to your native language to formulate the thought, just pause. Embrace that moment of silence. Your brain is working. It's searching for the English pathway. It's processing.
So it's like giving your brain the space to find the English answer instead of jumping back to the comfortable translation.
Precisely. It's uncomfortable, it feels slow, especially in real time conversation. But that awkward silence is actually a productive space. It's where new neural connections are forming. It's your brain actively trying to retrieve the English word or phrase, rather than taking the easy way out. I used this strategy when I was learning a new complex financial model. Instead of immediately asking for clarification in my old comfortable terms, I'd pause, let my brain wrestle with the new terminology, try to connect the dots within the new system. It felt like I was fumbling, but then, click, the understanding would suddenly align within the new framework.
Wow, so it's almost like giving your brain a mini workout, forcing it to exert itself in English.
Exactly. It's a moment of productive struggle. And the more you do it, the shorter those silences become, and the faster your brain finds the English connection. It trains your brain to stay in English mode. It's uncomfortable, yes, but incredibly effective for building that direct link.
That makes so much sense. So, consistency, small goals, positive reinforcement, and embracing that productive, awkward silence. These are all about rewiring your brain.
That's right. And it's not always about grand gestures. It's the small, conscious choices you make dozens of days that really add up. Try to integrate English into your internal monologue as much as possible. Describe your environment to yourself. Think about your shopping list in English. The more you immerse your internal world in English, the more natural it becomes.
So, we've talked about building new habits, which is fantastic. But what about the flip side? How do we break the deeply ingrained habit of translating in our heads? Because for many, it's almost automatic, a reflex. That's where it gets really challenging, right? Because habits, especially mental ones, are sticky. The first crucial step is to identify your triggers. What makes you revert to translation? Is it when you feel pressured? When the topic is too complex? When you're tired? Knowing your triggers is like shining a spotlight on the enemy. So if I know I always translate when I'm listening to a fast conversation, that's my trigger. Then what? Then you need to replace the habit. You can't just stop doing something. You have to replace it with something else. So instead of translating that fast conversation, maybe your replacement habit is to focus on just one key word or phrase from each sentence. Or, if you're speaking, maybe you replace the translation with Puck's earlier tip, embracing that awkward silence to allow the English thought to form directly. That's a great point. It's not about an empty void, it's about filling it with a better habit. And it needs to be an active replacement. Exactly. And this isn't a solo journey. Seeking support is vital. That could mean finding a language exchange partner who also wants to practice thinking in English, or joining an online community, or even just having someone you can confide in about your struggles. Knowing you're not alone and having someone to practice with can be incredibly motivating. Yeah, accountability helps a lot. And what about when you inevitably slip up? Because we all do, right? You try really hard and then, boom, you're back to translating. Oh, that's the hardest part, isn't it? The self-criticism. And this is where self-forgiveness comes in. This is probably the most underrated yet most powerful strategy for breaking any habit, including the translation habit. Tell me about it, because I think a lot of people just beat themselves up and then give up completely. Precisely. I actually had a really vivid experience with this. Not with language, but with a deeply ingrained mental habit of procrastination. For years, I would put off tasks, especially creative ones, until the very last minute. It was a terrible habit. It caused so much stress, and the quality of my work often suffered. I knew it was bad, but I just couldn't break free. Oh, I can relate to that. The cycle of guilt and then doing it again. Exactly. I tried everything, setting deadlines, breaking tasks into tiny pieces, even bribing myself. And sometimes it would work for a day or two, but then I'd slip. I'd miss a deadline, or I'd find myself scrolling on my phone when I should be working. And every time I failed, I'd just get so angry at myself. "You're so lazy. Why can't you just get this done? You'll never change." That internal voice was brutal. That internal critic can be so loud, so loud. And ironically, that self-blame, that internal negativity, actually made the procrastination worse. It created this huge mental burden that made me even less likely to start working. I was constantly battling myself. It was a vicious cycle. So how did you break it? It was a realization that came after hitting rock bottom with a particularly important project. I was completely overwhelmed and I just couldn't bring myself to start. And then I remembered something I had read about self-compassion. The idea that instead of beating yourself up for a mistake, you treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend. So you changed your internal dialogue? Yes. Instead of "you're a failure," it became, "Okay, you procrastinated again. That's tough. It happens. What's one small thing you can do right now to move forward? Just 5 minutes." It wasn't about excusing the behavior, but about acknowledging the difficulty and giving myself permission to try again without the burden of past failures. And did it work immediately? Oh no, not immediately. I failed again and again. But the difference was, when I failed, I didn't spiral into self-loathing. I just acknowledge it, gently remind myself of my goal, and try again the next hour or the next day. It was like I was slowly chipping away at a wall instead of trying to bash it down all at once. The failures became less emotionally charged and therefore less likely to derail my efforts entirely. So it wasn't about never failing, but about changing your reaction to failure. Precisely. It transformed failure from a reason to give up into just another data point. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And gradually, those moments of procrastination became shorter, less frequent. It took months, even years, to truly recondition that habit, but it started with that simple act of self-forgiveness. That's incredibly powerful advice, and so applicable to learning to think in English. You will revert to translation sometimes, but instead of getting angry, you acknowledge it, forgive yourself, and gently guide your brain back to English. Exactly. Be patient with yourself. This is a journey, not a sprint. Every time you catch yourself translating and gently pivot back to English, that's a win. Celebrate those little victories, forgive the slips, and keep moving forward. Wow, what an insightful discussion today on thinking in English. We've covered so much ground, from understanding what it truly means to practical strategies for building this powerful habit and breaking free from the translation trap. To recap some of the key takeaways, remember that thinking in English is about building direct neural pathways, like when you know a word in your native language without needing to translate it. It speeds up your fluency and makes your English sound much more natural. We also talked about the different stages you might be in, from word-for-word translation to understanding simple phrases directly and recognizing that mental block cycle where frustration leads you back to old habits. And most importantly, we shared actionable strategies. We emphasized consistency and setting incredibly small achievable goals, like narrating your daily actions in your head or silently naming objects around you in English. We also highlighted the power of positive reinforcement, celebrating those small victories. And my unexpected but highly effective tip: embrace the awkward silence. Give your brain that space to find the English answer directly instead of reverting to translation. It's a moment of productive struggle that strengthens those new connections. Finally, we tackled breaking the old habit of translation. Identify your triggers, those moments when you tend to revert. Then, consciously replace the translation with a better habit, like focusing on key words or practicing silent English narration. Seek support from others on a similar journey. And perhaps the most crucial piece of advice: practice self-forgiveness. When you slip up and find yourself translating, don't beat yourself up. acknowledge it, gently guide your brain back to English, and keep moving forward. Every small effort counts. Thank you so much for joining me today on engNatural Learn English Naturally. I truly hope this episode empowers you to take that next step towards thinking directly in English. Remember, the free PDF lesson with the transcript, vocabulary, and sentence structures from this episode is waiting for you in the description below. Go grab it. Now, before we sign off, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small step you're going to take this week to practice thinking in English? Or what's a moment you've experienced when you felt yourself truly thinking in English for the first time? Share your thoughts in the comment section on our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts if that option is available. Your experiences inspire us all. If you found this episode helpful, please remember to subscribe to engNatural Learn English Naturally, leave us a rating and a review. It helps our community grow and ensures more people can discover these conversations. Until next time, keep practicing, keep growing, and keep thinking in English. See you soon!